What's up guys, Sean here. Today I am sharpening this SPYDERCO SHAMAN for my buddy Chris. He is a repeat sharpening customer. He's also a viewer of the channel. He's a member of some of the knife groups on Facebook, I believe. He's a member of the community. Awesome guy. He has sent me many knives to sharpen. He always takes care of me, so I make sure I take care of him. And really, I don't treat any of my sharpening customers any differently. I take care of every single one of them because I care about all of you. And I care about doing a good job. So since I've been back-to-back sharpening past couple of days, I figured why not take this opportunity to make a little bit of sharpening content for you guys. And I actually already started on this one. Still on my first stone, doing the reprofiling. I did my first, session on this side. It's not completely reprofiled yet, but once I get it to a certain point, then I flip it depending on what is going on and where everything is with the Sharpie. That's going to depend on how long I work on that side before I flip to the other side. But it's a good idea, really, to make a couple passes or really only stay on one side for maybe a minute or two when you're first starting, and then flip and work the other side for a minute or two just to check and see where you're at with everything and make sure you're not going to be grinding away on a side that's already at a lower angle than the other side, and you just keep on grinding and grinding. Then it's going to be really difficult to even it out when you do flip it to the other side. So like to make a couple passes on each side when you first get it clamped in and set up to see where you're at, and then go from there and kind of work it wherever the Sharpie is indicating that you need to work it, wherever it needs more steel removed. So haven't touched this side yet. Sharpie's still on it, so I'm going to bring you over here a little bit closer so you can see what's going on and see how I kind of attack this reprofiling process. Alright guys, so let me flip it over and show you how we're looking on this side real quick. Ooh, careful. Alright, so I have it set at 17 degrees per side at the moment. I might drop it down a little bit after I get the profile all even and symmetrical. You don't want to start off all the way drop down at a super low angle. Say if you want to take it to 15 degrees per side, which I do for a lot of my shamans, you don't want to automatically start at 15, because if you have to even out the profile, it's going to take a tremendous, like many times longer to even everything out when you're doing it at that lower angle. You want to get everything evened out and symmetrical at an angle close to where it's already at from the factory, which 17 is pretty close. And it's maybe a hair lower than what this edge was at, but it's a good starting point to see where you're at and get everything evened out. And then you can lower the angle and everything will come together nice and seamlessly, or at least it should. There's no guarantees in sharpening, because sometimes you have some variations in the blade grind and all kinds of stuff, but that's why it's important to continuously mark the edge and kind of stay aware of everything that's going on with your stone, the blade, both sides of the knife, everything. You want to have a good awareness of all of that as you go. So don't want to stay in any one spot too long, just making a couple passes per section of this edge just to see where we are at. And I always put my finger out here so I make sure that I don't accidentally roll off the tip for two reasons. The most important reason is that you don't want to grind off the tip, because that's going to, it's fixable, but you're going to end up with a shorter blade. And also, you don't want to gouge your sharpening stone. These aren't cheap at all. These double-sided Veneve CBN stones are like $75 each, which is actually a extremely good value. But if these were the just a single-sided resin CBN with the Edge Pro backing plate to them, they're like $120 each. So you don't want to be gouging your stone. I'm not applying any pressure. I'm not really leaning the stone this way or that way. I'm letting it kind of follow the blade, the way that it's intended, kind of the way that it is from the factory. And my fingers here to make sure that I don't gouge my stone or grind off that tip. Now, I always start off going from heel towards the tip, but 99% of the time when you're doing it that way, you're going to notice you still have a section of Sharpie on the tip. The easiest way to get the end of the tip is to go at it from tip to heel. You don't want to start out really past the tip. You can start out maybe like a quarter of the stone out past the tip. Technically you can go to like the halfway point, but anything past a quarter, you're really getting into risky territory, and I do not recommend it. So you want to be pretty much just right there on top of the tip, just a hair past it, and without using any pressure, you know, the stone can just sit there. All right, you're just gonna go in an inward sweep like that. Don't want to stay in one spot too long, or else you will mess up the shape of the blade, the shape of the profile. Not necessarily the profile of the edge, but the profile of the blade, how it, you know, the belly. I'm just being very gentle, very cautious, and working this a little bit. Oh, see, you that's why you have to be careful. But because I'm not using any pressure, I'm not going crazy, it was very low when it dropped down, and then it rolled off, and there is no damage. Thank God for that, because there's always a chance that that can happen. But you want to be taking your time and approach every step of this with caution. There's no race, there's no reason to just try to fly through it, because that's when big mistakes happen. And you know, you don't have to be scared of mistakes, because in order to get better, you're gonna have to make mistakes. But you know, the smaller the mistake, the easier it is to recover from. And the more cautiously you approach it, the more you take your time, the better your results will be, and the less risk of messing anything up. Alright, I haven't completely got the tip, but made enough passes on it that I don't want to continue to work that before I work some of the rest of the edge. You want to work everything evenly, especially if you have a decently even profile on both sides, decently even and symmetrical from the start. You do not want to be the reason that you have to, you don't want to create more work for yourself, and you don't want to be the cause of any problem. So if you have a even starting point, there's no reason to make it uneven and then have to try and even it out. Grind away a lot of unnecessary steel, life of the blade. Don't want to waste it. And it's good to kind of work it from both directions, tip to heel, and I do those inward kind of sweeping motions. It's not a straight up scrub. Scrub would be side to side like that. You don't want to do that. You want to be going kind of like diagonal as you push in. As this stone rides across that edge, I'm going in at an angle, sweeping across, bring it back out, start sweeping across. Switching back and forth, going from sweeping from heel to tip, sweep, sweep, and tip to heel. All right. So now at this point in the sharpening, here is where I'm going to inspect everything and kind of assess everything, see where it's at, and kind of get a game plan together in my head, a plan of attack for the rest of the sharpening process. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. So it's not completely even yet, but it's not terribly uneven either. Not a bad starting point. See, the tip still needs to be worked a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and check the other side again first before I continue grinding on that tip. Tips can be really tricky and touchy, and the more caution you approach it with, the better off you're going to be. So let's check out this side and see where we are at, see what we need to do. So the reason that the tip is not getting completely profiled yet on this side, most likely is because from the factory, it was sharpened to a lower angle on this side. So when I started off reprofiling this at 17 degrees per side, which was dropping the angle down just a hair, it was already pretty much there for a lot of the edge. Back here, it needs a little bit extra attention, so it was a little bit higher from the start back here. So we want to work this section. Really, your two most challenging sections are always going to be the heel and the tip. All right, so because the tip is already, the edge bevel is already larger on the tip on this side, we're not going to want to spend much time at all in this area besides just coming across it to knock the burr down. We're going to be wanting to spend more, make more passes in the area that needs more steel removed. So it's going to be like from here to here. This section is going to be really where I make multiple passes. the rest of it's probably only going to get like 1 or 2 passes, just knocking the burr down or flipping it to the other side. And when we get over to this side, as you can see, we still have more grinding to do, because back here, this edge bevel is even smaller than it is on the opposite side. So towards the heel on both sides of the blade needs some work, but this side could use a little bit more work before we go back to the first side. And same with the belly and the tip. So going to work this side for, you know, several more passes, see if I can get it closer to how the other side looks, and then we'll move back to the other side, and hopefully that gives you a good idea of how I work the edge to get everything evened out and symmetrical from both heel to tip and side to side. Always set your collars. I have a spring collar in the back, which is nice, and then I just have the standard stop collar in the front. You don't want to be able to ride up onto the face of the blade. Alright, so you don't want this stone to come up onto the face of the blade. So that's why it's important that you set your first stop collar, which is this one. Slide it back a little bit. Go ahead and check that. It's close. Check it again. Alright. That is safe. So no matter whether I'm at the heel or the tip, you want to check it from all positions. Make sure you're not going to ride up onto the face of the blade. Same thing goes for coming off the blade. So when you're coming back like this, you don't want the stone to come off the blade and then slam the rod down into the edge, or you're going to end up with a decent chip or roll. So actually can give it a hair more. You don't want to do it all the way to the very, very edge. You want to give yourself a little bit of safety room. Just in case those collars start to move at all, you don't want it to, you know, come off the edge or up onto the face of the blade the second it moves just a hair. So give yourself a little bit of a safety net. Alright, and she's good. So now I can go back to working the profile. I'm going to try to give you guys a couple different views. I don't know what view is going to be the most helpful. So, alright, there we go. Raise it up a little bit so you can see what my hand and arm is doing. Very nice. Now we're looking very close to what the other side is looking like. Just with that short amount of time. Bring it back in. And we'll take a look at this again. Very nice. See how it's very similar to the other side. So just like that, you want to have everything marked and you want to keep an eye on everything so you have a good understanding of where it's at and where you are trying to get it. That way you only move in a direction making progress towards your end goal and not away from it. Gonna go back to reprofiling. I think I'm gonna cut the video short now because I really went over everything that you need to know about the reprofiling process. Did the best I could to explain how I go about it and how I achieve the beautiful profile edges that I do. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys. Jesus loves you. Stay tuned and see you guys in the next one. Peace.